May I have permission to enter into the record 2 articles from Louisville papers, one the Courier Journal and one from the Louisville News?
Without objection.
Thank you.
Mr. Meredith, you worked for Governor Bevin?
Yes, Senator.
You were his lawyer?
I was one of the lawyers in the office, Senator.
Okay. Governor Bevin issued some controversial pardons, is that right?
He did, Senator.
The FBI investigated those pardons, did it not?
Yes, Senator, that's right.
Did the FBI file charges against Governor Bevin?
My understanding is they did not, Senator.
Okay. Did you advise Governor Bevin on any of those controversial pardons?
The only controversial pardon that that I advised him on was one for Mr. Irvin Edge, and I recommended that Mr. Edge not be pardoned.
And was he pardoned?
My understanding from reading news articles is that he was pardoned.
Okay, so the governor didn't take your advice?
Apparently not, Senator.
Okay. But you didn't have anything to do with any of the other controversial pardons?
No, Senator.
Okay. If the New York Times, Mr. Meredith, published an editorial, let's suppose it said, Senator Kennedy is a bad senator. We don't like him. We think he's an ignorant slut. And I called the New York Times, and I said, okay, I want to write a letter to the editor replying. Can the New York Times tell me no?
I believe that they could tell you no, Senator.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Liberty Trigger, the place where we defend common sense, protect freedom, and call out government overreach wherever it hides. Now, I just watched Senator John Kennedy's latest hearing, and folks, this man gave a masterclass in constitutional truth. Let's break it down. Kennedy starts by asking Mr. Meredith, who used to work for Kentucky Governor Bevin, about those controversial pardons. Meredith says he advised against one, but the governor ignored him. Now, here's what's powerful. The Constitution gives the governor that authority. It's a reminder that power comes with responsibility, and that's something too many people in office forget. Drop your thoughts below. Let's have a real conversation. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more breakdowns like this one. Let's get into it.
Well, what if I said, if they told me no, I said, okay, I want to buy a full-page ad that says, John Kennedy's a good senator. He is not an ignorant slut. And they said no. Can they do that?
I think the First Amendment would allow them to exercise editorial discretion and control over the types of ads they want to sell.
You think it's purely a First Amendment case?
There could be. I mean, I think there are potentially other laws that could govern how they make their decisions to sell ads. But I think if they're making a decision about whether you can buy an ad that says Senator Kennedy's a good senator, I think I think the First Amendment would allow them to exercise.
Suppose I'm running for re-election after this editorial, and I go to my local television station and I say I want to run a political ad, and they say no. The New York Times says you're an ignorant slut. We're not going to run your ad. Can they do that? I
think that's governed. That's governed by different laws pertaining to the airwaves, which are governed by federal statutes.
There's only one Constitution.
That's right.
How can a news organization deny me the right to reply to an editorial that denigrates me, but yet I have a right to run a television ad that says the New York Times is wrong?
I think as in order to have permission to use the airwaves, I think federal law requires TV stations to give equal time or equal opportunity to buy ads.
Why is that constitutional?
Well, it's constitutional because my understanding, at least, is that the federal government controls the airwaves. Essentially, are federal property that the federal government can regulate and authorize the use of.
Yeah,
those
but the federal
airwaves.
government has to abide by the First Amendment, doesn't it?
It does,
I don't know.
Senator.
Explain to me how the New York Times can say no to me wanting a right of reply, but a TV station can't prohibit me from replying.
Senator, my understanding of the law is that the airwaves would be a public resource that the federal government regulates.
You think they're a common carrier?
I don't know the law on this specifically, Senator. I don't know that the common carrier analysis would apply there. Perhaps it would. I don't know.
Well, suppose I have my cell phone service with AT&T, and I call AT&T, and I say I want to expand my cell phone service, and they say nope. We read that New York Times article. You can't do it. Can AT&T turn me down?
I think theoretically they probably could.
No. How? Why? What basis?
Well, I take that back. You're right. They probably can't because it's the same thing.
Why?
They're using the airwaves as well.
They're a common carrier, right?
I think that analysis probably applies there. That's right.
Okay, Mr.
Then Kennedy flips the script. He says, "What if the New York Times call me ignorant? Can I buy an ad defending myself?" And the lawyer says, "No, Senator." They can say no. That's when Kennedy's point hits. So a private media giant can silence a citizen's reply, and that's still called free speech? Really? The founders never imagined a few corporations controlling what Americans are allowed to say. Free speech isn't just about government. It's about protecting the people's voice in the marketplace of ideas. Then Kennedy compares it to TV networks. He says, "Okay, what if a TV station refuses my political ad?" And here's the twist: they can't. Why? Because they use public airwaves, and by law, they have to offer equal time. Kennedy's point? If broadcast stations must treat candidates fairly, why do big media outlets or social platforms get to play gatekeeper? Freedom shouldn't depend on your platform. Next, Kennedy drops the AT&T bombshell. What if my phone company cut me off because they didn't like my politics? And you know what? They can't, because they're common carriers. They have to serve everyone. That's how a free society works. If you can't even communicate because of your opinions, that's not freedom, that's control. Then Kennedy moves to zoning laws. He asks, can Congress take over local housing control? Meredith says no, because zoning belongs to local government, not Washington. Exactly. That's federalism. Power should start with the people, not the Capitol. The closer government is to home, the more accountable it is. Finally, Kennedy asked the real-world question. What if local officials start charging $50,000 for a building permit? Meredith hesitates, but Kennedy presses him. That's when he cites a Supreme Court case where huge fees were ruled unconstitutional under the Fifth Amendment's Takings Clause. That's Kennedy's brilliance. Even local governments can cross the line when they trample individual rights. And that's what this whole exchange was about: freedom, fairness, and limits on power. Kennedy exposed how fragile liberty can be if we don't hold everyone, from corporations to Congress, accountable to the Constitution.